intersection of making art and making money.
Hello and welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm, episode 128. You're here with me, Tara Swiger. Here on this podcast, we help makers and artists feel confident and amazing about the business that they're creating from their handmade goodness. So welcome. Right now, we are in the middle of the Biz Confidence Challenge. If you are listening to this live when it's released in October of 2016, if you haven't yet, you can sign up to get the full challenge at taraswiger.com/Biz Confidence. That's B-I-Z Confidence. What we do in the Biz Confidence Challenge is every Monday, I will send you a challenge that if you do it, if you participate, you will you will be building your confidence over the course of 6 weeks. And confidence is vitally important in being able to share your work. So you'll get a challenge on Monday that you can participate in on Instagram with the hashtag Biz Confidence Challenge. You can go over to Instagram, check out that hashtag Biz Confidence Challenge to see the awesome things people are doing and the ways they're building their confidence. Then on Wednesdays, there is a new podcast episode like this one related to that week's challenge. And on Thursdays, there are live discussions via webinar with me every Thursday. So if you've signed up, you'll get the challenge, you'll get the recording of the podcast and access to that free live webinar. You can only get access to the webinar if you've signed up. And we discuss what that challenge is for the week, and I answer your questions about it. And I've helped people figure out where their confidence lies, where they can already draw confidence from what they've done in their life and their business. Because again, confidence is just so important if you're going to make any movement forward. Often when people feel stuck or they're not making movement or they aren't creating the kind of business they want to create, it's because they don't have the confidence. There's some fear and there's some I'm not good enoughness holding them back. So this week's challenge is all about identifying, getting very specific about what is your lack of confidence holding you back from, and then what the heck are you waiting for? Now, before we dive in, I want to say, if you're listening to this far in the future, past October 2016, and you go to taraswiger.com/bizconfidence, if we're not doing a live round of it, you can sign up then and you will be automatically entered in when we do it live. Again, it's totally free. You're welcome to sign up at any time, and we hold it live once or twice a year. But whether you're in the challenge or not, you can still take what we're talking about in this episode and apply it to your business right away. In fact, to help you apply it, I created a worksheet that's going to walk you through these questions I'm going to mention in this episode, because this episode is really about reflecting on your own business and kind of figuring out why you feel stuck where you feel stuck. And so I've created a worksheet that's going to help walk you through these questions. So if you're listening when you're running or doing the dishes or crafting, you don't have to stop and write them down. Just go to taraswiger.com/bizconfidence or just the direct podcast episode, which will be taraswiger.com/podcast128, and sign up there and you will get access to the worksheet along with all the rest of the challenge. So let's get right into it. What are you not doing? What is your lack of confidence holding you back from? If you have signed up for the challenge, why? Why do you need confidence? What do you need it for? Now, the easiest way to answer this question is to look at what am I not doing in my business that I know I need to be doing because I just don't feel good enough about myself. I don't feel like I'm good enough yet. I don't feel like I'm ready yet. I feel some fear about it. I just know I don't have, I know I need to do it. I kind of know the steps to take. I'm just not doing it. Usually that is due to lack of confidence. So there are a couple reasons why you might not be taking the steps in your business you need to take. The first one is you don't know what they are, right? And you can solve that through books and classes. I certainly have a lot of classes that will teach you what you need to know to do the next thing. And yet people still don't do the thing. Why? Confidence. Confidence is holding them back. That's why we do this free challenge, because I've realized through the 6 years of helping people in their business that if you know what to do, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do it. Either you don't have the time, in which case I have the class to help you figure out your right work day, no matter how much or little time you have, which you can find at taurusfire.com/time. Or you could find the time. You know how to manage your day and your stuff. You know what to do. You're not doing it. It comes down to confidence. So I want you to think right now. If you have to pause the podcast, you can. Think about what is a thing that your lack of confidence is holding you back from. Get the thing firmly in your head. I'll share an example. I had an agent who I talked to on Twitter, kind of randomly, actually it was 2 years ago now, because it was back in August of 2014, and she said, send me a book proposal. I would be interested in working with you. And I didn't, for over a year, send her anything other than an email that said, thanks, I'll send it to you right away. I didn't. So that was the thing that I wasn't doing, that I knew the steps to do it. I just wasn't doing it. For you, it might be applying to a craft show, a specific craft show. I want you to have one in your mind. It might be even figuring out how to do a craft show to begin with. It might be doing wholesale. Like, you know that your numbers would work out and you would like to sell wholesale. In other words, get your stuff in shops, and yet you haven't pursued it yet, or you've pursued it but you aren't in the specific shop you want to be in. Or it might be something related to your marketing. A lot of people know that they need to share their work with others, and yet they don't. So maybe that's, you haven't done any marketing yet, you don't have a website yet, or you haven't started on Instagram, which is a tool I recommend for lots of makers and artists in the beginning. What specifically aren't you doing because of lack of confidence that you know you could figure out the steps for? It's not a lack of knowledge or the ability to get the knowledge, it's a lack of confidence. Got the thing in your head? Okay, the next question, which is what we're going to focus on. Well, before we get to that, let me say this. The reason why I want you to have something specific in your head is because the past 2 weeks, we've been talking about building confidence in general for your business. So we have looked at the things that you are proud of, the things that you've done that you can build your confidence on, and the things that you have survived, the things you've tried and failed to reach your expectations and yet survived, because that's going to build your confidence, because you know you can get through it, you have resilience. But now, moving forward in the Biz Confidence Challenge, we are going to build the confidence for you to do the next thing you need or want to do in your business. Because it's fine. All of us have confidence in different areas of our life, but we want to make sure that this is really practical and useful for you, and that you actually do the next thing you need to do in your business. So for that reason, we're going to identify one specific thing. This is a thing we're going to work with over the next couple weeks to get the thing in your head that you know you could take an action towards in the next month. Okay, so if the thing you're putting off for lack of confidence is like getting married, but you're not dating anybody yet, like, you're probably not going to take a lot of action towards that in the next month. Also, of course, this is business related, but I want you to get one thing in mind that that you're not doing, that you pretty much know what the steps are to do. Okay, now, get the thing in your head. I want you to answer the question, why? Why aren't you doing it? So lack of confidence is a broad umbrella in which lots of things live underneath. So the real question is, what are you waiting for? Usually we're waiting for something. We think that if X happens, we'll suddenly be ready. And I'm going to give you a lot of examples of what are you waiting for might be. So if you don't immediately have the answer, that's okay. If you do have the answer, write it down right away in your worksheet. If I said, what are you waiting for? And it popped into your head, write it down. It might be that you think you're not good enough. It might be that you are waiting for someone else to tell you you are good enough. You're waiting for someone else to pick you. It might be that you are waiting until you know something specific. So there's like the difference between feeling you have the worth and you're good enough, and like knowing that you need to know one specific piece of knowledge. It might also be fear. So let's dive deeper a little into each of these, and these questions are in your worksheet as well. So if your answer is, I haven't done it yet because I don't think I'm good enough, then my question to you is again, what are you waiting for? And I'm asking this question not meanly, not snippily, not pushily, I don't know if that's an adverb, but not to be pushy and not at all to like come down on you hard. This isn't boot camp. I really want you to uncover the reason, because so often when I talk to makers and artists who know they want to do something and they know the steps and they say, I just like, I'm not good enough. What helps them move forward is when I say, okay, but what would let you know you are good enough? And then what can we do to let you know that? So it's not bad that something's holding you back. You just need to get really specific and identify it so that we can solve that. So I'm not going to tell you do it anyhow. I'm going to say, let's solve this thing that's holding you back. Let's find the answer to it. Let's comfort it in some way. Okay, so if it's that you're not good enough, what are you waiting for? What are you hoping will come along, or what do you need to come along to tell you you are good enough? And a sub-question to this is, how will you know when it is good enough? In other words, how will you measure this? So if you are thinking, I'm not good enough at this yet, I want you to write a description of what good enough is, and it needs to be measurable. Because if you say, okay, an example for me, well, I'll be good enough to submit a book proposal when I've got it all together. Well, girl, when are you ever going to know that you got it all together? You need to define that so that you know, oh, I'm here now. And in defining it, you may identify things you need to fix or work on. So a couple of examples for a real maker business might be, if you make yarn and you dye yarn, like I did for years, you might not want to approach shops or sell it at all until you know your measurement of good enough is that the dye isn't going to bleed in the water. That is actually measurably, you need to know that before you can sell it, because you need to have a good product. Because some of what might be holding you back is that you actually need to improve your product. Now, that's not true for everyone. Some people, their product is never good enough. They have such a level of perfection that they're never going to think they're good enough. But for very, very beginners, you absolutely need to meet a standard of quality. So that standard of quality, define it. Your yarn doesn't bleed. It doesn't, you don't felt it when you dye it. It doesn't have holes in it. For someone who sews things, your stitches need to not rip. If you say that this is a bag, maybe you need to do some quality control and wear it as a bag for a couple weeks to know that it will hold up. If you are writing patterns, have people test sew or knit your patterns or crochet and see that the pattern actually reads well. So that is how you will actually know it's good enough, because someone can use it and it does what it says. If you do pottery, you want to make sure it doesn't break if they put it in the microwave or if they put hot water in it. Whatever you say that your thing can do, you need to test that it can do that. This, having quality control, knowing your product is actually functional, is part of having confidence in your product. I do not want to build confidence in a product that is not actually what it purports to be. I'm not here to help you market a product that is not really as good as you're going to claim that it is. I'm here to help you have the confidence in your product that is good and help explain what awesomeness it is to the people who like it. Right? So we're not trying to overstate something or oversell something. And having the answer to this question, knowing what you're waiting for it to be good enough, can be really helpful in moving forward. Just identifying, what does good enough mean for my product, or when will I say it's good enough to sell, can help you fix the things you need to fix, or will help you recognize it's already good enough. This actually isn't, I have some weird idea of an indefinable perfection, and that's what's holding me back. So getting really specific in this question, even though it might seem obvious, can really help you either move forward or know what you need to fix so you can move forward. Now, another way you might be thinking that you are good enough is to get some kind of certification. So, for example, if you're a knitter or crocheter, you might want to go through your guild's like mastery level thing. Now, when I dyed yarn, I looked into I think it's called TKGA, the Knitting Guild of America, knitting master of knitting thing. And I realized I am looking at the certification to give myself confidence that I'm good enough, when actually the knitting mastery stuff has nothing to do with yarn dyeing and yarn spinning. I'll be a better knitter, but that won't make me actually be a better maker of the thing I make, right? However, if you want to be a tech editor for knitting patterns, you might want to go through Jolie of Jolie Creates tech editing class, because she teaches you how to do the thing it's hard to learn how to do otherwise, and she will give you feedback on if you're doing it right or not. That might be a certification or a class you need to take in order to learn the basic level of skills. But whenever you're looking at a certification, I want you to ask yourself, what am I hoping to get out of it? And does that skill set actually apply to what I do? So every once in a while, I get really obsessed by looking at master's and PhD programs in psychology, specifically in the psychology of counseling. Now, I do very few one-on-one sessions or like coaching sessions. It's only available to members of my online community, which is the Starship, because I found that those are the most effective people to work through, because we're already coming from them knowing where they want their business to go and them knowing the basics of profitability and marketing and time management. And yet, I'm always drawn to PhD programs in counseling, in part because I love to have this podcast and my classes and my interactions, and when I teach live workshops, I love to have that grounded in, well, the word I'm going to say is science, but what I really mean is I love to have it grounded in research and in methodologies and systems that are known to work beyond just my own knowledge and experience over the 10 years of running a business. So every time I look at those programs, though, my husband says, what do you want to get out of it? And invariably my answer is, I think it'll make me be more legitimate. And that is a good realization, but is being more legitimate to other PhDs necessary skill set for what I actually do? The answer is like, no. Now, if I can find a reason to get a PhD that is related to the skill set I have in the work that I do day to day, or I decide I want to change the work I do day to day to be more related to that skill set, then it would make sense. But you see, often we seek certifications and classes and courses just to make ourselves seem legitimate to the outside world, when in fact you need very, very few like legitimacy building things to have a handmade business. So I'm going to say that again. To sell your quality, well-made thing online, you do not need a lot of certifications and degrees. If you are creating a good product, and you know you are, and you can explain it to the people who buy it and love it, you do not need to have a master's or a doctor's in fine art or pottery to make fantastic, well-loved, long-lasting pottery. The degree program does not in any way ensure you're going to have a quality product at the end of it, and there are lots of ways for you to ensure you'll have a quality product without the degree program. Okay, so if one of the things that's holding you back is you like getting some certificate for someone, I want you to think through, is it really necessary or not? Now, I am a huge lover of education. That's why I read so many books each month, and that's why I teach classes, because I know you guys are often looking for education too. But I will often tell students, I don't think you need this class. Even if it's what I'm teaching and I would make money if you bought it, I actually don't think you need it, because you know this, you're just not doing it. Now, if the class gives you accountability to actually follow through with what you know to do, that might be what you need. But what do you need? Why? What are you looking for? And I have a blog post I'll link up in the show notes, which is 4 questions to ask before you buy a class or a book or a program. And the questions are related to, like, what do you need right now for real? And is this class promising to give you that thing? It's very easy to hold yourself back until some teacher has told you you have the skills when in fact you already have them. Okay? Now, another thing that might be holding you back when I say what you're waiting for is you want someone else to tell you. Now, this goes along with the certification and the teacher, but another way that this shows itself is you have probably been raised that what you do is you go to school, you learn how to do something, and then you go get a job. Getting a job means that you tell a bunch of people you're interested in doing this thing, and someone comes and tells you, you know what? I think you can do this thing. I will give you money to do this thing. That is awesome if you're a person who needs to be picked, because you were just picked by someone in authority and told, you do have the abilities, the skills, the background to do this thing. I'm going to pay you money to do it. Now, unfortunately, when you run your own business, there is no one to do that. As a business owner, as a self-employed person, even if you're doing your business on the side, you are not going to have a boss come along and tell you, hey, I will pay you for this thing. Instead, you have a million bosses come along and buy just one product from you, right? So instead of having one boss give you all your money, you have a whole handful of people give you a little percentage of your money, which is so much more sustainable long-term because you can afford to lose one client or one student or one customer and still pay your bills. But there's not that sense of being picked. So I want to remind you, you're not going to be hired when you run your own business, unless you're doing freelance and you work with clients and they hire you for projects. But most of you aren't like that. Most of you are selling something you make. So if you're waiting to be hired like that, or that might be like a feeling that's left over from the traditional work world that you haven't really addressed. You're waiting for somebody to come along and grant you permission. That's just not going to happen because that's not how running a business works. You have to grant yourself permission to do the thing and move forward. You have to give yourself that job. No one else will come along and give you the job you're looking for if what you want is to have your business selling what you make. Now, some people are waiting to be picked by a specific craft show or by a specific shop that they sell their work in, and that they think, if I could just get in this show or just get in this shop, if that's the thing, that's awesome. I want you to make a note of that, and then I want you to ask, what's the next step to take to apply to be in it? If what you're waiting for, with the thing you wanted to do next is whatever it is, and you say that the thing that you're waiting for is to get accepted into a shop, that will let you know you're good enough. Or to vend at this one show, that will let you know you're good enough. That is totally fine. I want you to write that down, and then I want you to look for what are the next steps to make that happen. Either approaching the shop, putting together your wholesale catalog, doing a trade show, applying to the craft show, putting together your application, and then do it. Because here's the thing, if you want to be picked by that shop or that show, you have to apply. Just like you're not going to get a job out of the blue, you're not going to have someone just swoop in and say, oh, I want you to do the show, or I want to carry your stuff in the shop. I know so many makers who want to be in shops, sometimes very specific shops, and hope that that person will just come along and say, I'll carry you now, because they've heard fantasy stories of how that's worked out for some people. And that does work that way for some people, but those people are magical unicorns. We don't want to build your business on hoping you're a magical unicorn. We want to create a workable, pragmatic plan to make it happen. So if you want to be in a specific shop, you need to pitch the specific shop. You need to learn how to sell wholesale, put together the materials you need, and then go talk to that person. Or hire a rep that goes and talks to that person if that's how the shop does it. Or if they buy from a trade show, you need to go do the trade show. You need to figure out the specific steps and then do them, or else that person will never be able to pick you. But you want to get clear on what those steps are and then start taking them. Now, I don't want you to wait to take those steps until you feel you're ready. If so, you got to go back to the beginning of this episode and go back to the beginning of the questions. What are you waiting for to be ready to apply to that shop? What are you waiting for to be ready to apply to that show? Is it a quality issue? Is it a knowledge issue? Or is it just that you'll know you're ready to be selling wholesale when a shop tells you you're ready to be selling wholesale? Okay, well, you got to go make that happen. You got to take the steps to make that happen. Now, another thing that holds people back is, and we talked about this a little bit with certifications, but it's knowing a specific thing. They feel like a piece of knowledge. So I hear from makers all the time, I know I need to tell more people about my work, but I'm waiting to have my marketing plan together. Or I'm waiting to figure out my marketing. Well, straight talk, your marketing plan will always be under revision. You will always be making your marketing plan. You will always be learning about the effective way to talk about your work. You will also always be learning who your right person is. So many people, after they hear about my concept of right people are the people who love and will want to spend money on your work, they say, well, I'm going to start doing Instagram more as soon as I figure out who my right people are. My follow-up question is, how will you know when that's happened? How will you know when you have your right people? Often, if we're in person, I'll say, okay, tell me who buys your work now. Tell me who you think will buy your work and will love it. They tell me, and I say, okay, now you know your right person, so go talk to them. That's it. You just have to make a description and start, and then you're always going to learn more. I have, my first business started in 2006. I have been working with makers and artists in pretty much the same capacity since 2010, so I've been doing it for 6 years. And every week I learn something more about who my right person is. I learn something that helps me improve how I market my work, market my marketing message. I learn about a new tool or a new way to use a tool I didn't know before. I'm learning that all the time. So if I waited to sell my work or to start talking about my work until I had my marketing plan figured out, I would never sell anything. You have to start talking about your work in order to learn about how to talk about your work. Now you can take a class. I have a class, Craft Your Marketing, but the point of that whole class actually is to get you to do it. So what you do first is you identify what's special about your work. You don't just learn about how to identify it, you actually do it. Then you write a description of who your right person is. Then you just pick tools. And then your marketing plan is how you talk about your work, who you're talking to, where you're going to do it, and then just when. And then you have to do it. But that's the thing. It's not something you're going to make over the course of 6 months or a year. Now, if you're putting together a business plan because you're trying to get a business loan or you're working with the SBA, me and my husband are hoping to buy the local comic book shop, and in order to do that, we're working with the SBA, so we need to create a marketing plan in a traditional business plan format. That we're working on. It takes some more time than just me saying it verbally, and yet, though, we know when that will be finished, and we know the reason we're doing it. So it's not something that's holding us back. It's one part of the plan of moving forward. So if there is something you feel like you don't know yet, and many makers just tell me, well, I'll really start growing my business when I just know more about business. Girl, get specific. I want you to write out specifically what you think you don't know and you need to learn, and then look for resources to learn that, and then look for ways of implementing it as you're learning it. All of my classes have worksheets and exercises for you to do to start putting it into practice, because learning it isn't enough. There's nothing in business you can just learn and just hold on to the knowledge. You got to use it and you got to apply it, because your specific business will use that knowledge in a different way than anybody else's. So you got to find it and tweak it and make it work for you. Okay, so identify what you feel like you need to learn, and then identify resources, how you can learn it. Books from your library or your friends. Go get them and then apply it. Do something with it. Now, the last thing that is often holding people back, that they feel like they would move forward if they got over it, is fear. And when I was recording this episode on Periscope, somebody mentioned fear of rejection. That is a huge fear. We all do not want to be rejected when we talk about our work. So I want you to, if you thought, when I said what's holding you back, What are you waiting for? You thought fear. I need to get over my fear. I want you to get more specific. Fear of what? Fear that too many orders will come in and you won't fill them. Fear of being rejected. Fear of it not going as well as you wanted it to go. Fear of failure. If that's it, I want you to listen to last week's episode 127, about failure and how you can learn lessons from it. Failure is a part of the process. So fear of failure, totally real thing. And yet, you got to remind it in yourself, it's a part of the process. Now, I want to suggest something. If fear is what is holding you back, I want to make a radical suggestion. What if you don't need to be fearless to move forward? What if you don't need to get over the fear in order to do the next thing? What do you think when I say that? Did your head just explode? Or were you like, no, I definitely have to get over this fear? So here's the thing. There will always be fear. There's so much I'm afraid of in my business. I don't want to fail. I don't want to look like a failure. I don't want to fall on my face. I don't want to cough really loud in the middle of a podcast episode. I don't want to talk to somebody and be rejected face to face. And yet, I don't know that ever goes away. That's part of being human. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to have so many of your ducks in a row that you're not afraid of something. Because here's the thing, failure doesn't go away. You're never going to be so together that you stop making mistakes, having things flop, being rejected. So you need to learn how to ride with the fear. Elizabeth Gilbert in her book Big Magic uses the metaphor of like letting fear ride in the car with you. So as you're on your journey of creativity, as you're doing the stuff you need to do, you tell fear, you can't drive, and you can't even backseat drive. You can't tell me where to go, but I can't seem to get rid of you. And the harder I push you away, the more you fight me, the tireder I get, the more you take the wheel. So look, just hang out with me. Okay, just sit in the back of the car. We'll listen to the tunes you like, but I'm driving the car. And I really love that metaphor because it's so true that like overcoming fear, I don't know how to do it. Maybe if I had my PhD in psychology, we would have an answer. But what I have learned, and actually hearing that from Liz Gilbert, really confirmed that you can have all kinds of success and you can do amazing things with the fear hanging out with you. Not taking over the show, not driving the car, not deciding where you go. But you're not necessarily going to get rid of it, so you got to figure out how to operate while still feeling it. Now, one of the ways you can operate while still feeling it is to keep your focus, to look away from the fear, even though it's still with you, and look at your confidence, what you know you're capable of. Remember, confidence is knowing that you will survive anything, that you will be okay no matter the result. Confidence isn't the belief that it will all turn out perfectly and that you can be perfect and that everything you want will come true. Confidence is knowing you'll be okay no matter what. So, knowing that, it's okay if you're a little fearful, right? So, what if you can do the thing even with the fear? I want you to think about that. All of these questions that I've asked you in this episode has been very question heavy, are in a worksheet for you. You can get it at the show notes where you'll also find links to everything I talked about, including the book I mentioned, the podcast episodes I mentioned, the classes I mentioned. Find all of that at taraswiger.com/podcast128. It's the word podcast and the numbers 128. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your friends. Either share that, taraswiger.com/podcast128, or leave a review on iTunes. That helps other people find it. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this talk about what's holding you back has helped you identify what it is and helped you identify ways to move forward and around it, or just live with it and still take action, because our goal with all of this is to take action that moves you forward. Whether the result is failure or success, moving forward, always a good thing. Remember, failure isn't the end result, it's just data for the next experiment. So to get that data, we got to try some stuff. All right. I would love to hear your responses to this. Share it with me on Instagram with the hashtag Biz Confidence Challenge or hashtag Explore Your Enthusiasm. You will find an awesome community of just brilliant and beautiful makers and artists there. It's hashtag Biz Confidence Challenge and hashtag Explore Your Enthusiasm. Thank you again, and I wish you a confident, enthusiastic day. Thanks so much for watching. You can get weekly lessons like this in your inbox, along with access to worksheets and checklists and transcripts from all the podcast episodes when you sign up below. You can also subscribe on YouTube, and YouTube will notify you when there's a new video. And you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram. If you do, be sure to say hello or leave a comment below the video to let me know you're there. Thank you so much for watching, and have a very enthusiastic day.